Well, we're back to Gloomhaven. But before I run the title, remember, we're now painting minis you have to unlock. So, spoiler alert, we're painting another mini for Gloomhaven. So, back to Gloomhaven again. Today we're going to be painting, and remember, this is a spoiler for anybody that, is just starting with Gloomhaven. Maybe watch the other videos for the Mind Thief, the Spell Weaver, which I've just done, the Brute, the Craigheart, and the Scoundrel, right? Because these are characters that you can start with right off the bat. So if you look at my other videos, right, that I've already done with those guys, it's not going to spoil anything for you, right? And you can see how they've been painted if you want to kind of follow along, right? Otherwise, today we're going to be painting the Vermling Beast Tyrant. And the Vermling Beast Tyrant is actually kind of neat because the Vermling, this little guy right here, has a beast. I guess that it would ride, right? But as in the picture, but commands the beast, and it's a very interesting character to play, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to paint. So let's just get down there and paint.
So here we go. We got the two to choose from. Do we do the bear first, or do we do the vermin first? I think we're going to do the Vermling first, but we can kind of do a little bit of both of them. So, the first thing I'm going to do is just at least get down first coat of Death Forest Green on the base, so I don't forget. And just to make things simple here too, I've got my ultimate hobby painting grip, and it just takes these little bottle cap things, and it's great because now I can stick the bear to one. See, so he's good to paint. Then I can just unscrew this and put this one on, and put the Vermling on the other one. So I can kind of bounce back and forth a little bit if I want to kind of keep painting both of them. So we'll start with the Vermling. We'll screw him back on, it's ready to go. And we're going to start working on the base. So there's a couple of reasons why I start with putting this coat down on the base. A lot of times do the base last, right? But there was once I forgot actually just to put down just a base coat of some green like this. And then I started putting down the cracked earth, and I started putting down my little stones and stuff, and I forgot to put the base down, so then when the other stuff healed, it would show white through in certain places. So now just out of a precaution, I put just that coat down first. So I got the one done on the Vermling. I may as well just go ahead and do the one on the bear too and get it over with. The other thing too is that sometimes it's hard to get into little tight places underneath, and it's easier to coat, say like his legs, it's easier to paint than it is to paint the ground underneath them. So it's just good to get it out of the way. It doesn't have to be even perfect. Even if there's a little bit of brush stroke in it, it's going to be all coated anyway. It's just literally to stop any kind of white from showing through when I do my final coats afterwards. So moving forward with the Vermling now, I'm going to use some Tuskgor Fur, and this is just going to be the base color for the general skin, I guess, of the Vermling. One of the things I like about Citadel is it was starting to dry actually. I haven't used this in a while, so I just add a little bit of water, mix it back up again, keep using the paint. It's great. As long as you don't let it get to the point where it's too hard anyway, that you can still mix it. When it comes to mixing your paint though, check out my latest video on my DIY paint shaker for really bringing that paint right back to a full, well-mixed bottle. It's very cool. You gotta check it out. It's a quick video, and it's kind of fun. You know, if you got these particular things lying around in the home, you know, you'll be able to do it too. Celestra Grey. So I'm just using a little bit of this in his face, you know, just to add to the tones. I'm kind of doing a little bit of this layer, and I'm going to try and blend it with the fur after, and some black. And as I'm doing this, I noticed that there's a press line I didn't see before, right under his chin and kind of down toward his arm. So I just finished this painting off a little bit here, and then we're going to try and see if we can shave it. Now, I try to shave this so you can see the line right there under his chin, and I'm trying to shave it with my little knife. But I find sometimes it wants to take more material than the knife's capable of. So I've got this thing I picked up from Canadian Tire for like 25 bucks. And it's just a little, almost kind of like a mini Dremel tool. And it allows me just to very lightly Dremel off that line without doing any damage to the Vermling. And it's great because, you know, I really don't want to take any other material off, because then I have to reprime and, you know, that kind of stuff. So I was able to do that, then go back to it with the knife and just pick off any of the little bits that I'd removed, and we're back in business. So very cool little tool. It's actually an engraver, right, for just being able to scratch your name into a cup or a glass or a container. And I find it works really well for taking out those little bits sometimes that you miss in your models. So here we're using a little bit of black, and we're just going to fill in the little lines where his eyes are, his nostrils, his mouth, right? Because it just kind of adds that depth after when you kind of add in the next couple of layers of his skin or his fur or whatever, right? You know, it'll kind of blend in close to the edges of the black, and then it's a matter of just putting in the color of his eyes, and everything should just look great. So it's definitely challenging when it comes to this little guy, because he's little. He's very, very little. So, you know, it's fun trying to get that little bit in there. Now, I was just touching up his ears there, but now we're back on to the Rhinox Hide. I've kind of decided to use this as the base for his clothing that he's wearing. It's kind of like, it's almost like feathers when you look at it and you look at the detail after you've been adding some of the color to it, and you can see it there. It kind of looks like he's used feathers, which is kind of neat. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the final color, but I'm starting with the dark first and working my way up to the light. So all the little veins and all the little crevices and all the, you know, everything in the clothes is going to be this dark color, right? As we start working our way up to a lighter, you know, browns and, you know, whatever little colors that we're going to put into these feather type things that he has for his clothing. And that's really going to bring it out. It's going to make it look cool. I was even looking at some of the detail in this actual little character, and you know, from his little bracelets to this thing around his waist with bones and stuff, there's actually some detail there, so it's going to take some time to paint this guy. Now,
using a little bit of the Tuskgor Fur again. Now this is where I'm just kind of adding back into the face. As you can see, I'm blending in with that bit of gray that I put in, and with the black that was already there. You know, and just kind of finishing that off because I want to kind of move on to his hair and that mane that he has around his, you know, for the top of his jacket or whatever it is. So here I'm really just kind of touching up now. Since I've got the fur out anyway, there's some edges here and there where I kind of went a little crazy when I was putting on that Rhinox Hide. Right, and I'm just kind of bringing his arms back out so you can distinguish where they are. Plus his foot down here. So it makes a big difference if you got clean edges. So sometimes it's easier to go with a light color up to the dark. Sometimes it's easier to go with the dark up to the light. It just depends on what it is you're painting, it seems. So now I'm thinking, okay, what do I do next? Well, how about we add some hemp rope? He has these little, it just looks like little rope bracelets kind of thing around his wrists. So I'm going to use a hemp color just to kind of highlight that. And then of course if we do a wash afterwards, it'll also help to bring out the lines in between and really kind of make it look more like rope. So as I'm just finishing up here with his hemp rope bracelets, we're now going to move into finally doing that mane around his neck with some filthy cape. It's basically great. You know, so we're going to put that in. I've got an old paintbrush here, you know, but it still does the trick just to kind of ram it in. You know, I have some paintbrushes. You can see that the end of this one here is all wrecked. You know, and I keep them anyway because sometimes I like to go against the brush, you know, and they always say to pull away, not push, right? But I like ramming, you know, some of the paint right in there sometimes. So I have a couple of them that I keep kicking around just to do that. Just so I can get all that paint right in. So at this point, he's kind of coming along. You know, I still have his staff to paint. You know, and this is just base layers. Again, you know, I just got the base layer down for his mane. I got the base layer down for his feather kind of cape. I've got, you know, the base down for his head and his fur and his hemp. You know, so now it's time to add a little bit of bark, Dryad Bark, and we're going to do his staff. So this is a little bit darker, you know, just so that it could make his staff kind of stand out. But when you look at the picture shows that it's actually a little lighter. So I'm going to use this as the base, and I'm going to lighten it up afterwards with like a dry brush or something, you know, to really kind of make it stand back out as it becomes lighter, like in the picture. Now, this is a Vermling. A Vermling is kind of like a rat. So using some Nuln Oil, I'm going to just spread it all over this little bugger, right? Because he's supposed to be dirty. He's a dirty little rat. Well, kind of like that, but anyway. So that's going to fill in, again, any of the little cracks and crevices and stuff, and kind of darken them up a bit and add some more definition.
you know, and just kind of make them look a little more dirty, right? So any little spots too that I couldn't get paint or just didn't get into, that'll end up filling it in. So it's like I always say, like when it comes to washes, it almost feels like you're cheating, right? Because really it's doing a lot of the work for you, and you know, you just highlight and add your other colors afterwards. So there it is. He is a dirty little guy. Flash gets yellow. It's time to do his eyes. So now this is gonna be fun. Trying a better angle with my camera because apparently I'm pretty crappy at videotaping. So I'm trying to get a better angle here, and I think this is gonna work all right. Now I got just a tiny wee bit of yellow on the end of that tip of that brush because he's got such tiny little eyes. And remember, I already put the black behind them, so this should make them pop and look good right now. And kabam, there we go, yellow eyes. Pretty cool. All right, that's it for yellow. Now this stuff is a little different. This is Longbeard Grey. Now this is actually a dry. It's meant specifically for doing dry brushing. And you can see it's actually kind of chunky in there even. Like it's not wet at all. You know, I use an old brush, you know, that's actually very bristly too. As you can see, you know, to do this. And then I just sit there and I rub it in. And this is going to give us that little bit of extra gray on that mane or hair or whatever it is that he has from the very top of his head to around his neck there. You know, and I even decide that it's actually going to probably work because just a gray, this is going to work actually good just to kind of bring a bit of highlight out in the rest of his clothing even. So the feathers and stuff in his back in the front and whatnot as well. So I just give it a very light brush, as you can see right there, you know, just to kind of bring up those edges, you know, and I think that's going to be pretty good. So you can see there that's starting to come along, even with his eyeballs. It actually looks pretty slick. Good to finish his stick. So a little bit more dry brushing here, and then we'll move on. Alright, so now a little bit of Cultist Robe. So I'm going to use this. I've already pre-mixed it with my super shaker thingamajigger, so it should flow pretty good. And I'm just going to brush lightly, like another dry brush, in the back to kind of highlight again some more into those feather type things that he's wearing. And then a little bit in the front as well. You can see I just kind of use the back of my hand just to get it down to the medium I want. And I think that's starting to look pretty cool. So it's not just one color anymore. Alright, so this is a really dry green. I'm just gonna do a little bit of a dry brush over those feather type things. Just kind of highlight all the edges now. So I've got the darker down into the depths and crevices of it, and I've got the lighter around the edges of it, you know, and all the other colors in between. So do a little bit on the inside there too, and I think that's gonna look pretty good. Not bad. He's a dirty looking creature, so Now, using a little bit of gold here, I've decided, because he's got this tiny little pennant. It's hard to see, but it's right there. So we're going to coat that, a little bit of the necklace that goes around. And then I've also decided to make these things that are hanging around his waist gold too, because when you look at the picture, it kind of looks more like that. So I'm just going to go with it. They're so small, you know, that you have to have a good tip. You know, new brush or a good brush to get in there and get those tiny little places. You know, this guy's like the Tinker. Small. I think the Tinker had a little bit more detail though, right, than this guy. He seems to be actually quite easy to paint, and they could have, maybe they went that way just because it comes with 2 creatures. I still have to paint the bear yet. We're probably going to do the bear on another quick video, because this video is already getting pretty long, so you know, I don't want to drag it out forever. Right, but I don't think the bear is going to take as long. So now here I'm kind of highlighting the staff that he has a little bit, because it's brighter in the picture, and it's not necessarily a gold staff. So I'm kind of almost doing like a dry brush gold just to kind of sparkle it up. Now I'm going to use a bright gold to brighten it up, you know, and I'm also going to use that on some of the tiny little bits that hang around him too, just to make them stand out a little bit more in contrast to his, you know, dirty character that he is. I think that's going to look good. Now again here, I'm just using this very lightly. You can see that I dipped my paintbrush in, and then I, you know, either spread it off or I spread some of it on my finger just to make sure that I don't get too much on the staff, because I don't want it to be a gold staff. I just want it to be kind of shiny. There, see? That works out pretty good. Now, the one thing I have decided though is the top I am going to make kind of a gold. Now I'm going to use the bright gold, because the bright gold by itself is almost like a really bright yellow with a shimmer to it, you know, and then I'm going to go back to the Bathasar Gold, right, and just kind of highlight it, you know, so I think that's going to look pretty good. So here we are here with the other gold, and just going to highlight it a little bit. So just to bring in the edges, and there we go. Now a couple more things to touch up, but he's pretty much almost there. So next, we're going to use a little bit of combat fatigues. Dun, dun, dun. So what I'm using this for is there's some straps that kind of go around his staff. So I'm going to cover those over now with a little bit of the battle fatigues. It kind of gives it that kind of material color, I think, that goes with the way the picture is. So, and it's also a lighter color too, so it kind of brings that staff, that lighter bit of the staff out. I also use a little bit just in some of the crevice spots in the front where it looks like he could actually have some sort of pants under there. And combat fatigues is still kind of like a dirty, you know, color, so I'm sticking with that, and I'm going to use that for underneath here as well. So that's pretty much her. So we're down to the finishing touches now. Let's get this base done. So this is the same as all other Gloomhaven characters that I've painted so far. I'm sticking to that same kind of pattern. I use this little dabbing tool that I got to just take big heap chunks and just dab it into the front. The trick is you don't want to go actually too thin. You want it to be somewhat thick. You know, you want some thin spots, thick spots, like make it kind of wavy, right? And that's what makes it get a really nice cracked earth kind of look to it. You can't go thin. You go thin, you get a lot of little tiny itty bitty cracks, right? You get some nice deep, thicker cracks if you go deeper with the amount of stuff you put on it. Now, I grabbed some glue and I put that on the back. I just kind of zip through to that because we don't need to sit there and watch me paste all that in. And again, just evenly displacing all the glue. Make sure it's not too thick, but not too thin. And I've got my big pile of rocks I got from Michael's. This is going to last me until I die, because there's so much in there, unless I start doing train sets or something. Just to get a couple of those choice rocks. You know, I think this really adds a great contrast to just having the battlefield ground added on there, because if I just had that, it's just boring. You know, it's got to be a little bit more. So I had lots of room with him because he's so small, so I used a few rocks. You know, and you've noticed I put the lid there again, so it's just so I can capture most of the battlefield that I end up having drop off of him, so I don't waste it. Of course, it seems like I can't find how to open it. There we go, and then we're just going to sprinkle that all over to fill in the rest of any of the glue that's showing. And then after that, pretty much all I have to do is just give him a clear coat, and he is going to be good to go. There is our Vermling from the Beast Tyrant, ready to do battle. I think it looked good, pretty good. So don't forget, please like, subscribe, share, comment. You know, let me know what do you think of how I'm doing with Gloomhaven, and we'll have another parter, and we'll finish off the bear, and we'll see that coming up soon. I'll try not to be too long. See you next time.